Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMordie, and I'm still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is David John Clark. Now, David is a super secret first act. I know. It sounds really, really cool, because it is. He literally can't talk about it, which is really, really neat, but he'll talk about a little bit in this episode about how his super secret job relates to his career in acting now. Ooh, so fun. He's from Australia, so we met super early in the morning his time, late in the evening my time. I also was recently on his podcast. He hosts the Late Bloomer Actor podcast. What a joy this man is. His podcast is phenomenal. It's very similar to mine in the best way. I love kindred spirits so much. We connected because kindred spirits, right? There's something about it. When you just meet someone, you're like, yep, you're my people. You're my people. You're on the literal opposite end of the world. I never would have met you if it wasn't for this weird and wonderful thing called the internet. And my gosh, we are so similar, and what a just delight. I'm not even forming words. He's so wonderful. Like I said, he can't talk about his first act, which he is still doing, but he's a couple years from retirement, which is exciting. But he's now obviously pursuing a career in acting as well, too. Please enjoy. I've built this up, how exciting it is, because it is exciting. He's super cool. Please enjoy David John Clark. Morning for you. It is a reasonable hour in the evening for me.
Yes, we're on the complete opposites of time, aren't we? Canada and Australia.
Opposite. So it is what time right now?
Just about to go 8:30 in the morning, Wednesday for us. So
yes. So hello from the past. It's 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
Okay. I've got the Toronto Lotto numbers for today if you want them.
Ooh, excellent. And I also want to know who wins gold in... No, I'm just kidding. Oh, by the way, sorry, Australia. We did a lot of damage to your sports today.
Oh, no, I haven't seen the news. What did we lose? What did
rugby,
you win, I should say?
We beat you in women's rugby.
Is that even a sport for Canada? Wow.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge sport. Clearly, because we beat you.
Well, obviously, yeah. Mind you, the Australians have a tendency to lose at the wrong times, unfortunately, sometimes.
You were the favourites by far, and then we just lost in the gold medal game to New Zealand, the defending champs, so we got
you'd
silver.
Want to lose against New Zealand. So they're kings of
it's like
rugby.
Respect.
I believe so.
I believe our men's basketball team also beat you in basketball today.
I think everyone beats us in basketball. I think. Our team's pretty good, but we're up against
they are really good.
The
I was watching the game. They're great. Yeah.
The Olympics is one of those things. I think we really do really well in our swimming and some other sports, but we just can't contend with some of the big team sports, I think.
Yeah, and how about Winter Olympics?
Yeah, well, we don't tend to get a lot of snow down here, do we? Mind you, we do have some very, very, very good athletes for the Winter Olympics, I believe.
Yes.
But I'm not a big fan, so I couldn't name anyone or anything like that. That's terrible, but
I absolutely love the Olympics, and I think anyone who knows me knows I'm just absolutely obsessed. And I'm actually headed to I'm one of the doctors with Team Canada for the Paralympics, so I'm headed there in a couple weeks. So it's just been nonstop at my house. It's just on 24/7. It's almost background noise. It's so exciting. I love it so much.
I love it.
I just absolutely love it.
You'd find this surprising and maybe a little bit upsetting. I watched a show on TV the other night about the enhanced Olympic Games they're trying to make, and they think that the real Olympics might end. That's going to be over because Brisbane has got the 2032 Olympics, and unfortunately they can't. They're going broke. It's costing $1 billion, which happens at every Olympics, and they think that if Brisbane pulls out, which apparently they're looking at, that'll be the demise of the Olympics, because apparently the same things happened with the Commonwealth Games. Melbourne pulled out of the next Commonwealth Games, and they have not booked another one.
Place. It's so
sad.
Interesting, and I think I could get into the politics of it, having worked with the Canadian Olympic Committee for a while and been to a bunch of major games at a bunch of different levels, and just kind of seeing. And, we all kind of see the politics that come through. And I remember when Vancouver had the Olympics in 2010, the Winter Olympics. It happens in everywhere. It's where do people put the homeless people? They try and clean all the rats out of Paris. Brazil is a third world country. Why is Rio hosting a games when they can't afford to feed half their population? It's really interesting. And I think there's a definite argument for how expensive it is. But I think there's also a really frustrating argument that doesn't seem to go well.
Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, David, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much
in
for
places that have already
taking
had
the time
it
out of your busy,
and
mysterious
refurbish some of
schedule
these old
to be
venues
on my
that
show.
don't get
I
ever
so
used
appreciate
ever,
being on
and just
your
make them
podcast. Everyone go
fix
check
them
out
up
the Late
and then
Bloomer
have
Actor
them in these
podcast.
places and just
my
kind of
episode is
rotate
up there,
around.
and as y'all know, my
They
love
did talk
language
about
is
just
words
taking
of
it back to the
affirmation,
home
and
of the
he
Olympics
says
and just having
some
it
of the
there every
nicest
4 years.
things.
Just
That way,
at the end of his show,
and then everyone can
I got
contribute
very
to the
emotional
cost of
listening to it,
maintaining
and I
the
will treasure
facilities, and it's
those words
where
always.
you go
Thank
every
you.
4 years.
That's a cool idea. But then I think the problem is
for
that
another episode of
and I'm going
Second
to
Act
edit this
Actors.
out because
Bye.
this is very not PC. The best games I've ever been to are in former communist nations who are desperate to show to the world how great they are. China.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Sochi, Russia. Where you're like, wow, these games are great.
I still think the Sydney Games were the best.
Oh
games.
my God. I have Simon Whitfield. Simon Whitfield was our triathlete who won in the Sydney Games. And I have vivid memories of But maybe we should talk about your acting career.
We might have
chatting with you.
We might have a lot more to talk about with the Olympics. No, that's terrible.
Okay, well, yes. Tell me your story. How did you get into this crazy business?
And everyone rolls their eyes at that question, don't they? I'm very, very different to a lot of people. I don't come from a dramatic background whatsoever. I never did drama at school. Never did anything creative per se. I couldn't even play sports. I had a very unfulfilling upbringing, so to speak, at school. So nothing that stood out in that sort of area. And acting came to me in Sydney when I lived in Sydney in the 90s. So I think it was about in my mid-20s. A mate of mine did extra work, and he said, "Look, I'd love to get into that." And I said, "That'd be awesome, getting to work on sets and see how movies are made." It was just a fun thing to do. So I signed up with his agency in Sydney and did extra work. Never even contemplated being an actor. Never even thought maybe I could be an actor. I was just an extra, having fun on sets and doing stuff, which was brilliant. And that was for quite a few years. One of the biggest notable things was I got on the set of Star Wars, Attack of the Clones. I know, I love it. I'll explain what happened on set and everything I said, but it's a funny story because I rang my agent up and said, "Hi," because they're filming Attack of the Clones at Fox Studios in Sydney. I said, I'd love to get on set with Star Wars like everybody else. What's the go? And they said, well, they're looking for really special characters, some weird looking people and unattractive people, different sort of looks.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take that as a compliment then.
Yes.
And then the next day she rings me back. She says, I've got you on Star Wars. And I said, now I'm confused. Now I'm confused. So I got a one scene on Star Wars, which is a scene where Padme, the princess, just after the assassination attempt on her, is being returned back to her home planet, and all the Jedis are on a charter dropping her off, and she's with, I always forget his name, the guy that ends up becoming Darth Vader. He's walking her across the apron towards the ship, and I'm playing a space captain, and I walk in front of them as they're walking, joking away, and I'm carrying a box with another space captain, and that's my scene. But I got personally directed by George Lucas. So he came up, he chatted with me for about 30 seconds, explaining what he wanted us to do and everything. So I can now say that I'm an actor that's been directed by George Lucas.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it's such a brilliant thing because, as I said, just being an extra and seeing how movies are made. And this was filmed in a huge lot in the Fox Studios and the warehouse. And all it was the only thing that resembled anything out of Star Wars was the floor, which looked like the apron of a flight deck. And the rest of the whole thing was all blue screen or green screen. So, and then obviously you see the end of the scene. It's just brilliant. So, and everyone goes, "Oh my God, you're in Star Wars. Where can we watch it?" I said, "Well, if you pause it at the right moment, that's me there just before I go off screen. Or if you watch it because it's from a distance, you can tell it's my gait, my walking style. You can tell it's my gait." So, but it's funny with Star Wars because I've had calls from people that the fandom. And they want to find out how you got on Star Wars and what your character is. I go, "I'm not really a character. I'm just background. I'm in it for 3 seconds." But no, they are so keen to know about it. So I think I've got my own fandom page somewhere on one of the Star Wars sites.
Oh my God.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Wonderful. Well, I think moments like that, because I have a similar not Star Wars. Oh man. But being involved, being background on a massive multi-billion million infinity money set where you don't have the restriction of budget, to be honest. I mean, of course, everyone's still thinking about money, but you don't really, which means you also get put in a fabulous costume. You and you get to witness everyone around you do their art, costumes, makeup, grips, lighting, props, the actors, the director, the ADs, everyone, the gaffer, everyone who are usually pretty top of their field.
Yes.
Be doing what they're meant to be doing and for the most part really enjoying themselves because this is the echelon, they've made it.
A well-oiled machine.
Yes.
Yeah. As opposed to a lot of the student films that we do, which we might talk about, where they're learning and everyone's sort of getting the hang of things, but you get on these big sets and just, oh my God.
Yeah. And both are so valuable. And it's catered, right? Both are so valuable, obviously, in completely different ways. But I think that's what really got me so hungry to be in this industry was witnessing that artistic collaboration, which happens in student films too, but witnessing that artistic collaboration, that excitement, that drive to, this is a group project and everyone's contributing. There isn't that one idiot who's I'm just here to get the A. Everyone is contributing and they're
Definitely.
Yeah, let's go. It's very exciting. I think it's rare in the world.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
And before I go on how I journeyed into actual acting, I have to say that as I think I was 26 years old on set with Natalie Portman right there. I was just in love, so to speak. She's such a wonderful actress and such a wonderful person. And I had a chance to joke around and have a chat with her for a quick couple of minutes on set, which is just... This is something that's there forever. Really.
Oh, core. Yeah, that's a memory.
I love
sure.
it. So, very good.
Tell me more about the journey since then, that core memory.
So since then, so I left Sydney in 2001, just after I got married, and me and my wife had our first child, and we didn't want to bring up my family in a 2-bedroom apartment in Randwick in Sydney. So I put in for a transfer with my employment to Adelaide, which is where my Kelly's families was. And put in for a transfer and we got down here. It was a lot easier life, and this is where we've been ever since. So I think I signed up for an extra agency again then. And I remember walking into one of the agents here and just to sign up as an extra. That's all I wanted to do. Again, still not thinking that, hey, I could be an actor. And I remember sitting in the couch in their agency. I'd booked in and they said, yep, come in. And the agent come out. I won't say her name. And she just looked at me and she's looked me up and down. She says, we don't have a place for you here. Exactly. And I went, oh, okay. And then she left. Yeah. So we talk about moments in acting or whatever that may open up a door or close the door. That closed the door for me. And I walked out of there and didn't sign up with any other acting agency. Not that there's a lot in Adelaide at that time, and never thought about it again for 10 years. And so about 10 years later, and I'd had my 3 children by then. They were making a bunch of movies here in Adelaide, some Gallipoli movies, and Russell Crowe made one here. And I said, you know what, I should get back into it. So I've gone to another agency and to sign up as still again as a background, as an extra. And that went in there and they said, look, you have to come in and do this evening course with us so we can tell you how things work and we'll get your photos and everything. And I found out that they had their own acting training. And they said, we do 4 terms, introduction to acting and then introduction to camera and theatre and stuff like that over a year. And I said, oh, what the hell? I'll sign up for that. What's it going to do? It might make me one step forward in getting more extra work. And that first term, that first course of acting is when that light dinged, ding, above my head. And I said, this is cool. And that's when I started to think, hey, let's look into doing acting, because there was just that moment where I loved doing what an actor does in the training environment. So that was the start there.
Now, were you a creative kid growing up? Was that ever... No. Did nothing
in that area, nothing. A lot of your people, when you interview them, they say how they put on shows for their family and, dancing shows or acting shows. No, nothing ever like that I can remember. The most creativeness that I had as a child was building elaborate car sets on the beach, with your little Tonka toys and stuff like that. That was about the most. So it's one of those funny things that you, an actor, really? Okay. So
now I know, because we talked about it in your podcast, when I was on your podcast, that you can't really talk too much about your day job.
My day job, yes.
Which sounds very mysterious and exciting.
We'll go with that. Yeah.
Can you just in vague terms talk about your, I know it's still your career, but in vague terms, what that looks like for you? Why that, as opposed to anything else that you could have chosen?
Well, when I finished high school, I studied my goals and dreams when coming out of high school was to be a fighter pilot with the Royal Australian Air Force. And excuse the pun, but I crashed and burned in year 12. There's certain things happened in our lives growing up. I moved around Australia a lot as a child. My family, when I was in kindergarten, my mum and dad bought a caravan and we travelled around Australia. We essentially did a 14-year trip around Australia to see the whole country. So we'd do a year in each town. Mum was a nurse, dad did whatever. So we'd go to a town, live there, and then we'd explore and do camping and stuff like that. So I was almost like a military child, from different place. So I never had that ability to develop friendships and develop relationships, so to speak. So I was a very shy person coming up and didn't have that ability to make friends. So when we finished in Alice Springs, which is in the dead centre of Australia, to finish my high school, Mum and Dad decided we need to sit down so you can have one focus on to finish your high schooling. So, and a couple of things happened towards the end there when I got to year 11. 2 things happened. A, I got a core group of friends, really good mates, and B, I got my driver's license. And I bought a car. And I was the only one in my group that had a car. So social things started to happen and school went out the window. so to speak. School became a lot harder, obviously, year 11, year 12. You had to focus a lot more. It was a lot harder, whereas it always came easy to me. I was always an A-grade student. And then all of a sudden I had to actually find myself focusing and putting in an effort. But then the social side of things come out. And all that together, I sort of cruised in finishing high school, but didn't get the grades to get into the Air Force. So here I was at the end of year 12 going, now what? What am I going to do? And a door opened for me, and I talk about this a lot on my podcast, with anything for any career, anything in your life, doors open and close as they come. And I got a job with the Commonwealth Government doing what I've been doing for 32, 33 years now. Which was in Alice Springs, and then I was able to transfer to Sydney later on. So that job, and as we said, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to say what it is, and that's just a restriction from the people that run certain areas in my organisation, but it's a very people-focused job. I look after the community, and I provide services for people and stuff like that. So that gives me a lot of grounding in seeing people at their worst. It's one way of seeing it, and seeing people in a diversity of state and a diversity of life and different environments. And I think that's really, really worked well now that I've decided to get into acting, because I can draw on that and I can see the characters, which is what we as actors do, and trying to bring those emotions and those backgrounds. You might be given a script of, you're playing a father who's just lost his wife in a car accident. Which is terrible for anyone in real life. How does an actor bring that out? And I think I can draw on those experiences and those times of people's lives that I've seen working with them and bring it. So that's in a nutshell how my career now helps my acting out, without giving away what I do for a living. But we'll go with the mysterious approach. So
I like it. I know, right? I'm like, oh my God, I have many theories. Yeah. Tell me more about the light bulb that went on over your head with that class. Tell me more about that feeling. Was there something in particular that really made it turn on? Or what about acting do you love so much that clicked for you?
It's really hard to define. It was just about owning the moment, or something about being somebody else, so to speak, and being able to mold them and to deliver. And but I think there was a moment I did a scene with a young girl that was in the scene with me, and I had to look up at her, and then she just, as I delivered my line, and she lost it. She said, we got the scene done eventually, but she says, oh my God, our eyes connected in such a way that she says she could see the emotion in my eyes or something. I remember her saying, and it was about that. It was about affecting someone else through something that wasn't real. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, does it ever?
and from someone that's not creative, that was what I found really interesting and really exciting, was being able to take something that wasn't real and make it real, and enjoy it at the same time. So,
that makes complete sense. And for me, my question would be, like, that emotion coming from someone who, like, has, is quote unquote not creative. Was it because this was a safe space to express? Like, what was it, do you think, that allowed you to really connect? Was there something in particular?
I don't really, I really can't say what it was. It was a moment. It was just a moment that I didn't plan for it to do that. I was just delivering what I was delivering. And I think it was more about her reaction to me, because I'm very, very, very introverted, there's nothing special about me. But here I was with someone being in awe of what I had done, and to the point that she had to stop and gather herself so we could do the scene again. So I think that's what really, really hammed it down for me, was that, just that moment. You know, that it was me, that I had done this, and I go, me, little old David, you know, so, and which is a very introverted thing, which is funny with actors because I believe most actors are introverted anyway, which I found surprising. So, I think that was the biggest moment for me that, hey, I can do this was one thing, and I enjoyed it. So, it's fun.
Has there been anything since that moment, and you're kind of traveling through this career? Has there been anything that's been surprising for you besides obviously the light bulb moment you had? Anything else?
I think everything's surprising. The fact that I'm still doing it is surprising. I feel, and I talk about the ebbs and flows of the acting journey, and I think we discussed it with you as well. It's about actors they have so many highs and then they have so many lows, and that journey that you have, and you seem to feel that you have those troughs a lot more than the highs, and that's what's hardest for an actor, especially when you doubt yourself. And I still doubt myself today. I'll ask my wife, I said, do I look good on camera? You know, I don't think... I just feel that sometimes I go, why am I not progressing as an actor? Am I just boring to watch or boring to look at? So over your journey, you have those moments all the time, and then you need those great moments where you have a really good scene or you have fun on set that you go, I love this, and then you continue on. So fortunately, if you didn't get those, I think actors would drop out all the time. So
yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's where, you know, I think we see like the atrophy rate for acting has got to be, I've never seen any data, but it's got to be so high, especially after the first year. Because if the reason why you're doing it, and I know this is such a woo-y thing to say, if the reason why you're doing it is to like make tons of money and be super rich, like...
And famous,
right? If that's the reason, if that's your why... And you realize very quickly how difficult it is. I mean, sure, there's those flash in the pan, those like people plucked from obscurity we always hear about, and that's what kind of keeps the hope alive for a lot of people. But I think that realization comes pretty hard and pretty fast to, I think, a lot of actors. And so what is it that has kept you in it?
Stupidity.
It's all a scam. I'm with you.
Not that I believe or take in too much of star signs and that sort of stuff, but I'm a Taurian, and we're very stubborn and very loyal.
Yeah.
So, and my wife will attest to both of those. So, so I'm very stubborn in that I've decided to do something, and I've continued to do it. And I've had those moments where I go, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. I'm spending so much money and I'm not making any money. But I go, no, I'm going to keep pushing through because it's something I love doing, and I want to see it through. And I'm very, very fortunate in that I don't have to rely on an outcome from my acting. And so many young actors out of university or whatever they're doing, they need their acting to pay the bills. Yeah. And I'm fortunate that I have a full-time job and a career which will end in a couple of years' time with a nice little my superannuation, my pension. So I will have an ongoing income, so to speak. So then, yes, I'll be 55 years of age, but I'll be able to go into full-time acting and not have to rely on getting that acting job to pay the bills. So that's what keeps me going, knowing that I'm going to get to a point where I can just go with the flow. And if something happens, something happens. If something doesn't, something doesn't. So I think that's the biggest thing for actors is to is making it continue. And you've got to find your backup plan, your B plan, so to speak, that something to pay the bills, whereas you can keep the acting going. I think that's the biggest thing that I push to young actors that I might talk to, is to say, yes, go and get your degree and go and focus on your acting, but you need to find your backup plan. And it's not a backup plan to get out of acting, but it's something to pay the bills, so to speak, that can work hand in hand with your acting. And that can be really, really hard.
Yeah. And I think, I definitely have had conflicting advice from that, right? And I think most actors have. You know, we read books that are like, get your backup plan, get your plan B, so you don't monetize your art. You're not relying on your art to pay the bills. You're not depending on your art. You're not putting so much on your art. Like, what a lot of responsibility to put on your art.
Definitely.
But then the flip side is, you know, people saying, well, how are you supposed to you can't have your feet in two different buckets, right? You have to be fully in, all in. And I'm like, all in this economy? No way. But I think it's so hard. So, do you have any advice for anyone who is interested in starting out in acting or trying to balance?
At any time of their life, or as a second act actor, or a bit of both?
Let's do a bit of both. Let's maybe start with how to balance it, because that's kind of like, you know, what we've been chatting about. And I know you've given advice to younger actors. How do you balance?
Yeah, it's like anything in life, I suppose. If you're doing a sport or whatever, you've still got your normal day-to-day life. So you have to find that balance. And that's a very, very personal thing. So you've got to make it work for you. Now, if that means that, we were talking about the swimmers at the Olympics before. So they train early in the morning. So they would have to give up so much in their lives to make this work, because they've got to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning for swimming. So that negates the ability to go out at night. So they've got to stop the social aspects of their life, knowing that they've got to get up early in the morning, do their swim, and then go to work or go to school. So that's a choice that you have to make. So balance comes down to choice, so to speak. What am I going to keep and what am I going to give away to make this one thing work? And you know what you need to do with acting. So if you're starting out young, you could probably have that balance could be more focused on the acting because you're at home with mum and dad. So you don't have the pressures of needing a full-time job. So you can be the casual waiter or a waitress, so to speak. So it's still a balancing act, but slightly tipped towards more your favour, more in the acting world. But if you're coming into it late as a second act actor or as a late bloomer, then you don't have that ability to balance it more on the acting side because you've got a mortgage to pay, you've got a full-time job, you've got a wife and kids, and the lawn needs to be mowed, the car needs to be serviced, and all those pressures of life that we go through every day. So again, but you do have to find what am I going to give up, because you want to pay some more money for courses and that. So it's balancing, yes, but it's a seesaw that's not quite balanced, so to speak. You've got to try and find that to keep that momentum. If you imagine a seesaw tipping backwards and forwards, you might be throw some on the other end and you've gone too far over the left, so then you've got to come back to the right, so to speak. It's not fun, but fun at the same time.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's so true. And I think that's really important to remember, right? Like, I think so often we're like, okay, I can't give up something because like I need to be able to balance it all and do it all and have a smile on my face the whole time because look at me. But it's like, no, this is really hard. It's not fun part of the time. And you're going to have to give some stuff up.
Definitely.
And that does suck, but that's the reality of it. And it's okay for it not to be fun. I think, I don't know, I have a hard time when when you're like, oh shoot, my quote unquote hobby is not fun some days, when you're like, this should be fun. This is supposed to be fun. I could do anything with my time. I'm like, no, there's going to be days when it's not fun, and that's okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I've always treated my acting professionally. I know we use the word hobby, but from the day that I chose to do acting, I treated it as a business and I treated it professionally. So I set everything up for the long haul. So I had a long game in mind, and then we learn the troughs and the peaks through that game, but I've still got that end game in mind. So as much as the troughs that come through and the moments where you say, I can't do this, you say, well, I haven't reached my end game yet, so I'll just plow through them and keep going and have fun with it and try and find those moments that make you realize that I'm doing this for the long game, for the long run.
I think that's great advice. Like knowing what your end game is, trying to figure that out and being like, yeah, I will get there. It's there. I just need to, tramps around and fall in a ditch and, climb back out and enjoy it on the way and sometimes hate it. But there is there's that constant light at the end of the tunnel. That's a lovely, lovely thing to think about. I like that a lot. That's great.
And on the opposite end of the spectrum, we were talking about the younger people. Andrew Hill, who I've interviewed on my podcast, who runs stagemilk.com here in Australia, which is an online drama type school where they do scene work and everything like that. And a great bloke, I love him. He's WADA trained, which is the Western Australian Academy. And he's one of these people that come out, and you mentioned it before about you've got to be all in.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with him and don't agree with him. I think if you can find a time at anywhere in your career, whether it's straight out of high school or like me when I retire in a couple of years' time, go all in when you can. And it's probably more for a younger person that's the moment they need to go all in when they're first deciding that they're going to do the journey, whether they've gone to university to do the 3-year degree or whatever, but they've got that ability to take those risks. They're at home with mum and dad or whatever. They don't have the pressures of a mortgage or debts or anything like that. So you can, if the money doesn't come in, someone's still going to feed them. So that's a moment where you can go all in. But there is that moment where life and time goes on and you've got to find a way to start backing off and making that balance and to have that secondary job, because at the end of the day, you don't want to get to the end of your career and not have a pension plan in place. I mean, I know America and Canada have similar pension plan systems and everything. So if you're not contributing to that, heaven forbid you get to 55 and you've got nothing there. You don't want to have to, unless your acting career blows up and you're on set with George Lucas on Star Wars 17. So
that's right.
So it's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your podcast. What brought that about? Your podcast, The Late Bloomer Actor, is fantastic.
Thank you.
When I started listening to it, I was like, kindred spirit. I love this so
Why
much.
I jumped on with yours, because it was just the same thing. And it's so great because people talk about competing things. And, but you're in Canada and I'm in Australia, and it's so different yet so similar. I love it.
Totally.
I like to share my journey with others so that anything I learn through mistakes, I might be able to pass on to someone else so that they don't have to do the mistake and their journey can be faster. There's a big thing in the acting world where a lot of people don't want to share opportunities at the risk of losing something. I mean, I'm not going to tell you about this acting role that's coming up because I want it. Sort of thing. Whereas I started up a Facebook group here in Adelaide, which has grown exponentially, where I share opportunities and share things like that around with everyone. And I go, at the end of the day, if a role is yours, the role is yours. And you sharing it with anyone else doesn't matter. Yes, maybe if you hadn't have shared it, you would have got the role anyway because you were the only person left standing. But then, it will, if it wasn't your role to start with, it'll be one of those shows or one of those scenes where you just go, I regret doing that because it wasn't really meant for you. Whereas if you'd shared it and they found that person that made that scene, not only has it made it for them, you've made it for the crew, you've made it for the director and everyone involved in that production. It becomes a better thing for the future and for everyone to see. So that's how I look at it, and that's why I started my podcast, because I wanted to share my journey as an actor and the highs and lows and everything that I learned, so that if one person could walk away with inspiration from what I've told them or who I've talked to on the show, then I've done my job.
That's awesome.
And there's always that little bit of it's for me, you get to talk to people that you might not have got a chance to talk to, and I can learn from them.
Yes, absolutely. There's a little bit of self-serving, but you're like,
definitely,
that's okay because that's what I'm doing, right? I'm creating. I love it. Your podcast is great. I'll link it in the show notes below. And yes, kindred spirits.
And a lot of stuff coming up now is about you making your own work. We've got to make our own work, and again, it comes down to that creativeness. I've done a couple of the 48-hour film challenges and stuff like that, and I do a good job, but I don't really have that ability to make something great. Storytelling and story arcs and character development, it's just a whole gamut of other things that I need to learn. And as a 50-year-old, I'm learning too much now. I'll leave that to someone else. And one of the biggest things there, I said, I get your old crew, and everything's about, this is unpaid, and I don't want to be another person trying to get a team together that's unpaid. If I want to make something, and I've got a lot of ideas, I will do it when I've got the money to say, I want to pay everyone. I'm going to pay my DP. I'm going to pay my cinematographer and a director and everything like that. So I might do that one day, but I would want to be one of those people that is doing it financially. There's plenty of opportunities out there. So I will help out other people, and that's what I do. So
yeah. I love that. It's funny. I had somebody on recently who was talking about season 2 of their show, and the best part. I was like, "What was the best part about season 2?" And they're like, "Getting to pay my crew." Because season 1 was like a but teeny budget skeleton crew, and then they got picked up for season 2, and they're like, "That was the best." That was like how they deemed success wasn't like them being like more famous, was like, I could finally pay people as a thank you for believing in me. And I'm like, that's pretty lovely. I really like that.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And just coming back to the podcast, the reason, yes, I focus it on late bloomers because that's me, but I do address it to all actors. But one of the biggest things with late bloomers, and you'll get this with second act actors too, is I think everyone you've interviewed is the same as the late bloomers I've spoken to, and there's that thing about doing it now. It's something I've always wanted to do, or I've had people come in and say, "Oh, I'm a late bloomer, but I'm too old." And it's about, no, you're not. If you want to do it, do it half, just as a hobby if you want to, just as an extra in the background, or take it 110% like I am and make it work, because you can do it. And as late bloomers, as second act actors, we've got so many positives that we can make it work, because we're coming to the end. Oh, that sounded terrible. We're coming to the end. No, but the mortgage is almost paid off, and the kids are grown up and they're moving out. You're starting to transition to retirement. So you've got that ability to make it work. Yes, you might have started when you were young and then you gave it up, or you had to give it up because you needed to do the career that mum and dad wanted you to become, the accountant or the doctor or whatever. And then life become life. And then all of a sudden you realize you're 50 years of age and you go, you know what? I never got to do that thing that I wanted to do when I was young. Don't say it's too late. Don't say it's too late. It's never too late. And that's what I focus on in the podcast, and you do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned Star Wars already. Do you have any other favorite moments on set, or do you have one that stands out more than Star Wars?
It's one of those questions where you go, I know there's more and you can't think of them, but
of course.
I've done some great independent stuff here in Adelaide, and there's so many moments because everybody's learning and everyone's doing something different. But I love a moment that I did a student film with the director's Rebecca Dunker, who I think that one day we'll see her name up on something big. She's just, her creativeness and everything that she does is just brilliant. So this show was called Frequency. It's a sci-fi about a post-apocalyptic world where some sort of creature or worldly entity comes out when the music stops playing. So they have music constantly playing, and it's the only way that the music you can stop the creature. And I'm on set with a great friend of mine, Eva Jalak, who was my first guest on my podcast. And I didn't have a lot of lines, but my favourite scene there was when the music changed and this creature come out. We all realised that moment that things are, that were probably going to die. I didn't want to go down that way, so my character got to get to machete and cut my throat. And so straight across, that's the only line I had was, you allow swearing on your show, don't you?
Oh,
yeah. I got to fuck this and slide the machete across my throat, and the blood splatter goes across Eva's face, which was great, which you know how things work in the background. Someone's there with a bucket. And then I dropped dead, and then she continues on. That was so much fun. And it's like freezing cold. It was out in the wastelands here on salt plains. It was just so cold. Everyone's so wet and miserable, and it was just a moment. It was just so much fun, and to do it with someone that was a great friend as well was good. So
I can only imagine just looking around, like ready to go, ready for action, and being like, how is this my life? How is this a thing that's happening? Everything about this is surreal and awesome and also awful at the same time.
Yeah.
What a life, eh?
And it is. And that's to be able to do stuff like that is just to be in a different world and going all the way back to the Star Wars days, to be on that set with people like Natalie Portman and George Lucas, and to see the machinery of a movie and then to go and watch it on the big screen. So I did a TV series here which was on Netflix and ABC Australia called Pine Gap, which is the space base in Alice Springs. A little bit of a hint there for my real career, but that's as far as we go, which was great being on a TV series of somewhere where I'd had some experience living in Alice Springs, and everyone knows Pine Gap. And to see the end result, to watch it on TV and to see it all come together is just to be so brilliant. And because it can be such an intricate set, our set was the control room of the space base, all set up at the studios here in Adelaide, and then to see it come alive on screen, post-editing and everything that they do. I think that's the joys of being an actor, is to see what everyone else that's involved, you do your little bit and you don't think it's too exciting, but to see it all come in as one big picture is just makes all that hard work, all those troughs worth the effort, I think.
Oh, that's absolutely. Do you have anything you are looking forward to coming up?
Well, that's what the joys of acting is. You just don't know what's coming up, do you?
I mean, so true.
The phone can ring tomorrow and all changes. At the moment, I've got an independent TV series that's just finished filming. They've just had their premiere, and unfortunately, I was on night shift. I wasn't able to go, but that's called Blood City, and that's so that's a bunch of very, very talented filmmakers here in Adelaide that have put this story together. They were doing a lot of fight choreography in their just out of their own backs, and they've made a story around it to be able to put their skill sets together. And I've got a very intricate little part there which has plans for my character to sort of become something without giving the story away, because it's that's where it's going on their story arc. And that's what I'm excited about that. So that's very good. So, and again, it's one of those things that you don't realise you're a part of something, and then you realise that it's becoming bigger than you thought it was. You just had a small part, and then all of a sudden it's becoming something. So, so what am I looking forward to coming out? Just the next one, the next scene, the next opportunity, because they will continue to come, and you need to realise that you might go for months with nothing, but your moment will come.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's like your moment will come, and you never know. Even you may have a Wikipedia page about the captain holding a box in Star Wars. That is you. Like, you never know. You'll have fandoms coming up, people in the fandom being like, excuse me, hi, who are you? Tell us about it.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
We live it. It's such a different world now, with everything that came out with the strike action and AI coming and everything like that. It's very, very negative feel about the world at the moment. And that's not just acting. That's just everything we do. Everything feels like what is happening here, where are we going, and it can build on you and make you go, so what the fuck am I bothering for? You know, where are we going? I think we just have to hope, for want of a better word, that we will get a better outcome and that something will come. And when you bring it back to acting, you say, well, yes, things are changing and you've got to change with it and make it work, but don't let the negatives that are coming out and the negative talk and the negative feel bring you down. So otherwise you're just going to wake up every morning and go, why am I bothering? And that's a horrible feeling when you feel like that.
Do you have any final words of wisdom or advice?
Enjoy the process. It's one of those things that I've got to come up with something really, really motivational here. And I always
It's been an hour of motivation, David.
I always pinch the saying from the shoe company, just do it. You know, especially with us late bloomers, second act actors. Out of everyone that you talk to and everyone that I talk to, there'd be another dozen that haven't done it, that are sitting there listening to that episode going, well, they did it. Just do it. If you want to do it, make it work. Do it 100%, do it 10%. But if you do it 0, you're not going to get anything. So that's about as much as you can say, isn't it? Really.
I love that. It's so simple and so beautiful and so powerful.
Do it all or do it some, but if you don't do it at all, then 10 years' time, you'll be in the same spot you are today going, what if?
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you, David, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy, mysterious schedule to be on my show. I so appreciated being on your podcast. Everyone go check out the Late Bloomer Actor podcast. My episode is up there, and as y'all know, my love language is words of affirmation, and he says some of the nicest things about me at the end of his show, and I got very emotional listening to it, and I will treasure those words always. Thank you, David. I so appreciate you. I hope you will all tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!